it's the one girl he shouldn't want. I don't need that on there. Just keep it off. Hello and welcome to today's video. Two things I want to address. I'm kind of low energy today because I just had a performance last night for dance, so I'm really exhausted. And second thing is I kind of sound a little sick, but I'm not sick. I think I just lost my voice yesterday from yelling a little bit. I might not sound different at all, but to me I sound different, like in my own head, in my own ears. Today we're going to be doing my November wrap up. I read a total of 9 books in November, and I think it was a fairly good reading month for me. I got myself out of a slump, so that was good, but we're just going to go through the books pretty quickly, everything I read. The first book was Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen, and I rated this 3 stars. I really thought this was going to be a higher rating than 3 stars. It was not a bad book, don't get me wrong, but I remember really loving the beginning, and then the ending just kind of dropped off flat for me. Julia Whalen is an audiobook narrator, pretty popular audiobook narrator, and this book is about a romance in the audiobook narrator world. It's about a girl named Swanee Chester, and she's an audiobook narrator. She has like a convention in Las Vegas, and she discovers one of the world's most beloved romance novelists wanted her to perform her last book. Basically, she's just put into this project with this audiobook narrator that she doesn't really like, and it turns out to be a little romance, and it's kind of hard to explain. There's a lot going on in this book. I haven't thought about it since I've read it, so that's kind of why I rated it a 3 stars, but it was not a bad romance. I thought it was very good. I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by Julia Whalen, and I enjoyed it. I love Julia Whalen as a narrator. I liked her little escapade into writing. It was a good book, I think. Then I read Verity by Colleen Hoover. I rated this a 2 stars. I've since discovered this is my 3rd Colleen Hoover book that I've read, and none of them I've really loved. So I'm kind of discovering that Colleen Hoover is just not an author for me, and that's totally okay. But I really wanted to love this book, and unfortunately I didn't. I'm not going to tell you what this is about because most people know already. This is one of Colleen Hoover's spookier books, and I would not consider this a romance. First of all, I'm not a fan of spooky. Second of all, I just have discovered that none of her books are for me. I don't care for that kind of tragic romance. I don't care for it. It was hard for me to read, not in a way that was like, it was hard because it was disturbing. It was just hard for me to get through. Like, I wanted it to be over. Then we have Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert, and I rated this 3 stars. This is the 3rd book in the Dark Olympus series, I'm pretty sure. I don't know how many more books there's going to be. I know there's a novella out. All of the Dark Olympus books are retellings of Greek mythology, and this one follows Achilles, Helen, and Patroclus. This is the first book I've ever read where it wasn't a love triangle with 3 people in the romance. It was just a romance about 3 people. Never read anything like this before. It was very interesting. It was good. Like, it was good. Basically, the plot line is that Helen enters a tournament to become the next Ares, and so does Patroclus, and so does Achilles. But Achilles and Patroclus are kind of on the same team in that they're trying to help Achilles win this title, and Patroclus is just in the competition to help him. But Helen of Troy is in the competition to win herself like a name, a title, instead of just being like a trophy that her brother Zeus is going to like be allowed to dole out however he pleases. She's trying to win herself a place in this society of Olympus. And so they meet during this tournament, and they kind of start to form a relationship, form a bond, all 3 of them. Yeah, it's just following them throughout that tournament. I will say, I don't think any of the rest of the series is going to live up to the first book. I really enjoyed the first book. Hades and Persephone retelling is just hard to beat. Like any other retelling, I feel like it won't live up. I rated it 3 stars. It was a good Greek mythology retelling and not confusing. So I recommend this to people who aren't usually into Greek mythology. You really don't need to know a lot about Greek mythology to understand this retelling. So then I read The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is the 2nd book in the Inheritance Games series. I rated this 3 stars. I feel like this is just a typical middle of the series book. Like, I feel like it didn't add much. I don't know. I just can't even remember what the plot line was, which tells me like it was mediocre. I had fun while I was reading it, but I can't tell you anything about it. Yeah, I'm not going to give you a synopsis of this one because it is a 2nd in a series. So it's like, you know, I don't want to spoil anything for the first one. I really enjoy the series. I just feel like this book specifically didn't catch my attention as much as the first book did. Next, I read The Goal by Elle Kennedy, and this is the fourth book in the off-campus series. I rated this a 3 stars. This one follows Sabrina and Tucker. If you don't know about the off-campus series, it follows a bunch of friends that are on a hockey team at Briar University and just follows each of their romances in separate books in the series. There was a trope in here that I didn't really enjoy. I will say I did like the romance aspect of it, but I just found that trope kind of like, I don't like that trope. I don't enjoy it. So it was hard for me to get into. I'm not going to tell you a synopsis because that will also spoil some of the books previously in the series, but I do recommend this as a romance. I think it's pretty good. Then I read a book on audio, and it was Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton, and I did not read this book because it was kind of like a memoir. Actually, it's hard because I would say it's less of a story of his life and more of a story about how Harry Potter and being in the Harry Potter movies impacted his life and not fully on just his whole life. It wasn't bad. Like, as a memoir, I feel it wasn't bad. I really enjoyed it because I liked hearing about the behind the scenes aspect of Harry Potter, but I mean, I didn't read it to learn more about Tom Felton. I knew kind of, based on the title and the cover, that it was going to be mainly about his experience in Harry Potter, and I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so I really enjoyed reading about that aspect of it. His writing, I feel, was mediocre. It didn't do anything crazy. It wasn't like, wow, in your face writing, but it also wasn't poorly written. I could tell he put time and like effort into it. It wasn't just a celebrity memoir to just be a celebrity memoir. Like, I feel like he actually wanted to put this out there. It was a good memoir. I would recommend for Harry Potter fans who kind of want to know a little bit, like a tidbit more about the kind of behind the scenes aspect of Harry Potter. But if you're looking to really get into Tom Felton's life, I feel that was taking more of a backseat to the Harry Potter aspects, if that makes sense. And I'm not mad about it, but I didn't rate this memoir, so I can't really give you like a number. Anyways, moving on. I've got The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book in the Briar U series, which is a spin-off of the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. The Chase follows after all of our off-campus series students at Briar and on the hockey team have graduated. This is like the next generation. This is like the next set of hockey players on the Briar hockey team. So after they've all graduated, this is kind of the next book. And this follows Colin Fitzgerald, but they call him Fitzy, and Summer, the sister of one of the off-campus hockey players. So it's their romance. I'm not going to give you a synopsis because, again, I don't want to spoil, but this was probably one of my favorite romances in the series. I was really looking forward to following Fitzy's character. Also, this cover I feel like is the most socially acceptable. Like, the other covers are kind of risky, but this one is less so, I feel. So I felt more comfortable like reading this around my house and like out in public, except for like the little blurbs. I hate when they put the little writing because like the cover's already awkward enough. I don't need you to say it's the one girl he shouldn't want. I don't need that on there. Just keep it off. What did I rate it? I rated it a 4 stars. 4 stars. That makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of all I gotta say about it. Then I read Better Than Fiction by Alex Martin. I did read this physically, but I have already sold it on Pango because I didn't really enjoy it. So it was 2 stars. As soon as I finished reading it and rated it, I put it up on my Pango and someone already bought it. So I don't have the physical book to hold up with me, but I'll put a picture up. It was about this girl who inherited her grandmother's bookstore called the Book Nook, and she actually did not want to inherit this. It kind of made her feel like it was a trap, like she had to stay with this Book Nook, and she felt like her grandmother wanted her to keep it going even though she didn't. And so she kind of gave up her life for this Book Nook, and then she meets this author called Jasper Williams who's doing an event at her bookstore, and they kind of make a deal together and end up collaborating to help him write his next romance novels. Our main girl, she does not believe in romance novels, so she's a little skeptical, but they end up forming like a romance. And in the beginning, I really enjoyed it. And then towards the end, I was kind of getting some vibes that the main character was like hitting on women, low-key, SLUT shaming, and I was not really vibing with it. So that took me down a few notches, and then I just felt like the end was just weird. I don't know. It started strong, and then the more that the main character talked, I was just like, wow, you are not a good person. Like, what are you doing, queen? Yeah, I don't know if I said this, but this was by Alexa Martin. 2 stars. It was not. What really drew me in was the cover because it's a really pretty cover. But unfortunately, I didn't like the book. And then the last book I read in November is my first holiday read of the season, and that is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. I really enjoy Tessa Bailey as an author. I read 2 of her other books and I really enjoyed them, so I was really happy to pick this one up. I bought this off of Pango. Great experience with the seller. This follows a girl named Stella who is just fresh out of prison. She is a felon. It also follows Aiden, who's the owner of a department store, and it has been Stella's dream to be a window designer, like a department store window designer. And so she meets Aiden outside of his department store that his family owns. It's called Vivant. She's like looking at the window and she's like, wow, this window design sucks. And then he's like right next to her and he was like, oh, tell me how you would design it. And she has no idea that he's like the owner of the department store. And so she goes on this whole like rant about how she would design the window. Basically, he's like, you should apply for the job. We're opening a position. You should apply. So that's when she finds out he's like the owner or whatever. And she like can't really decide. She's like, well, once he sees that I have like a criminal record, he's not going to want to hire me. All this stuff, but she's just like, whatever, I'll apply anyway. So she applies for the job, and then because of her criminal record, he offers her a little like trial period. You can design this one window, and then if it goes well, we'll hire you full time. So it obviously goes well. She gets hired, whatever, and it just follows them in their romance. I liked this one because while it had holiday elements, it wasn't a complete holiday romance. Like, it was set during Christmas. The main character enjoyed Christmas, but it wasn't the center of the book. Like, it wasn't like a Hallmark movie. It was like a romance set during Christmas versus a Christmas romance. I feel like there's a difference. I really enjoyed this. Rated it 4 stars if I haven't said already. That's the last book I read this month. Oh, also I meant to say that one was set in New York, which I also really enjoyed because I think New York is just the most holiday setting you could ever really have. So that is the end of my November wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great November reading month, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.